Hello everybody and welcome back to Red Eagle Politics. Make sure you guys like this video down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. So, Donald Trump, as we've mentioned, is leading Joe Biden in the polls in terms of not just like the Electoral College in the states necessary, but the popular vote, which is something that's interesting. We know Republicans won the popular vote in 2022 by roughly 3 percentage points, even though they had a disappointing showing in terms of retaking the Senate, winning some key governor's races, etc. But Donald Trump has only led his political opponents, either Hillary in 2016 or Biden in 2020, in the popular vote for probably like a combined 6 days. He never was within, I think, like 3 points of Biden in 2020 in the popular vote. When it came to Hillary, he led her for like a day right after he won the nomination. And then he led her for a few days after the RNC. He gave one of the most epic speeches that I think I've ever heard. And now he has been defeating Biden in the popular vote for quite some time, actually. And obviously, polling is not always accurate. We know that either way. Sometimes the polls have overestimated Democrats, like in 2016, 2020, usually when Trump's on the ballot. Sometimes polls have overestimated Republicans. For example, what we saw in the 2022 midterms in a lot of swing states, even though the national polls tended to be more accurate. And Donald Trump is somebody that has a unique ability to turn out that white working class base in middle America that adds a lot of electoral jet fuel to the Republicans that they're not able to really capitalize on, and we're not able to capitalize on in 2022. So it begs the question, can Trump win the popular vote? And if so, what would it exactly look like, or what would it take in certain states for Trump to go out there and win it? Because we're going to be playing around with the election shuffler. We're going to be moving states to the right in order to make up that deficit there. Now, I will say we're not going to go county by county. We're going to adjust all the counties in the state. Technically, some counties will be moving further to the right than we'll move them. Some will be moving probably to the left even. But nonetheless, we're going to fill this out. But first, I have to tell you guys about our exclusive website, redeaglepolitics.com. You guys can join for just 16 cents a day or $5 a month. You get an exclusive video every single week. We dropped one on the Wisconsin Senate race a few days ago. And also on top of that, you could join the Discord. You could call into the call-in streams. We finally did one the first time in like 3 years, about a week ago. We're going to do another one this week. If you guys want to call in, join the Discord. You can do so by joining the website. You also get exclusive access to the newsletter and all the articles that have been written as well. So make sure you guys sign up. The link will be in the description and the pinned comment down below. But without further ado, I think it's very important that we start working on this map. Now, keep in mind the percentages are going to add up to 100%, but keep in mind that there will likely be third-party votes. Biden's favorability rating has dipped. Trump is not necessarily above water. He's not at 50% or above, but you do have a lot of people that are disappointed with Biden. Some may not like Trump. A lot of those people, assuming Trump is the nominee, could very well go third party. You see far left activist Cornel West is running. You also have the potential for a Libertarian Party candidate to make waves. You also have Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Could he potentially run at the end of the day on the Green Party ticket? We'll see what happens. I know there may be some sore loser laws, but not a lot of them tend to apply to presidential races as far as I'm concerned. So it's going to be interesting to see there what takes place and what happens. But for example, if we have Trump losing California by 20, could be 58-38, and the rest would go third party. Doesn't mean Trump's going to crack 40 in California, but we're going to start off with California because Republicans in the midterms actually did crack 40% there. And if Biden's not that popular, he's not well liked. I'm not saying it's guaranteed to happen, but it could move right. You see things like Hispanic trends happening there, and Republicans kind of seeing a little bit of an interesting effect because the leadership is so awful that a lot of people are starting to defect from that, and a lot of them in these down-ballot races are starting to vote Republican. However, Trump is a little bit of a polarizing figure. I think his margin's probably going to be closer to what we saw in the recall election with Newsom and Elder. I think Trump probably gets around in the high 30s, so we'll actually give him 40% right there. I think he loses by around 20. But if Biden's really that unpopular and Trump's winning the popular vote, he's going to need to make some inroads in California. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to flip, but he will get around that margin. The margin will dip. R plus 10, that seems a little too lofty. We'll even go R plus 8 there for the sake of the argument. But already, that shaved a point off of Biden's popular vote lead. Now it's 3.67. So speaking of the populated states, I think it's important that we focus on those first and foremost. Another state where we saw a turn to the right in the midterms was the state of New York. It's possible that Trump could pick Lee Zeldin, who made the state within striking distance at the governor level. It's possible he could make him his VP. We don't really know yet, but the suburbs in New York City have actually moved a little bit to the right in recent years, which has not been the same case as a lot of other suburbs in the entire nation, especially those in the Sun Belt. But we're going to have to move this state significantly. It is true that the Democrat brand has sort of been damaged a little bit in New York, and we see that there. Even the Senate race with Chuck Schumer, he's been an electoral juggernaut. He only won by, 14 points over some pro-Trump guy with very little funding. Even George Santos was able to win a deep blue district by quite a bit. And that's saying something given the fact that, what we know now about him, and he's probably not going to win re-election, sadly, because he's actually been solid and is still probably one of the most honest people in Congress that we know. But New York will probably have to move to the right. I think that you could say it could be around a 16-point win for Biden. You see a little bit of a shift there. That's going to shave off another great portion of that popular vote margin right there for Donald Trump to get within striking distance. Now we're going to go to Florida, because Florida is a state that's been zooming to the right. The Dem State Party is in tatters right now. It's in shambles. Donald Trump, his home state, is from Florida. He won it by 3 last time around. It's very possible he could end up winning it by a lot more this time around. It is true that the midterms had relatively low turnout. He's not going to probably win the state by, 20 points or so like a lot of Republicans did, but it's possible he could end up winning it by over 10 points at the end of the day if he's really winning the popular vote. You see a massive shift there, and boom, that margin goes to D plus 2.6. So we're going to go directly to the state of Texas now. And this is a state that's a unique state because it has been moving away from Republicans in recent years. However, Joe Biden's approval rating here is awful. It really is. And somehow the rural areas keep getting redder. The Hispanics are moving right fastly. And Greg Abbott, despite, the Roe effect in Texas banning abortion, etc., he ended up winning by 11 points over somebody who almost won the state in 2018. So already there you see the fact that the state party is relatively competent, and that's going to help out Donald Trump in 2024. It could potentially, if he doesn't really have a great night, get a little bit closer, but I do think the state stays red this cycle. And if Biden's really that unpopular, you could have a dead cat bounce in the other way that bucks the trend, and you could see Donald Trump winning it by closer to his 2016 margin, although the map is going to be looking slightly different. So already you add that up, the margin decreases significantly, but still, is that really enough? It's at 2.45%. He's going to need to keep adding and keep stacking those totals in every single state in order to get there. And it's possible at the end of the day, especially with a state like Ohio, you see the trends there. Yeah, the state party is competent compared to other statewide Republican parties in the region. It's possible that it could turn into the new Missouri, and you could see a vast shift to the right, especially because Biden's administration not that popular there. And as a result, you see the shift there, it adds up. Now the popular vote margin is 2.1%. People talk about Virginia. Virginia's a state that Republicans won the governorship in. I don't believe that it's going to necessarily end up coming back at a ridiculous margin, but it's possible that because of the trend, you see 3 points there. It all adds up. It all adds up to that popular vote margin. Iowa's another state. You saw the midterms there, Republicans winning that governorship by 17. It's possible the state continues its trend to the right, and that puts the margin under 2% for the popular vote. So now it's like, okay, we need to go to the populated states and keep adding, because every state across the board will likely see some shift to the right. And you could look at states that shifted right in 2020, like a state like Hawaii, for example. I know it's ridiculous. People think Hawaii is a safe blue state, but in the midterms, it even moved right. It's possible you could see Republicans getting closer to 40. Doesn't mean they're going to win it anytime soon. But this administration there, not super popular. That adds up. That adds like 0.1% to that margin there. Nevada, another state where a lot of this will come from Clark County, but you will possibly see a shift to the right in the state that could flip the state into Donald Trump's column already. It adds up, for example. You see that there. And you could go state by state and do this. Yeah, maybe Georgia, for example, you're not going to see a ridiculous shift back, but maybe it does shift right by a couple points or so. Trump manages to pick the state off one last time, does really good in those rural areas, and maybe doesn't see massive losses there in the suburbs. It still all adds up. So you have to go across the map and really find out where you can max the margins to get the result that you really can find. And obviously taking that, third party share into account, taking all of these things into account, yeah, Trump could end up getting 48% of the popular vote nationwide, which is 2% more than last time, and he could win so long as Biden sees that dip there. It's very possible, but you're just going to have to go state by state and do this. And yeah, it's possible that he could be carried to a victory in a place like Michigan, if that's true, where there really is no competent state party, but you just kind of have to go state by state there and fill this out. Like even states like Arkansas, yeah, this state has a lot of potential to still move to the right in certain areas, depends on turnout levels we see on the Democrat side. You can move Louisiana to the right by maybe not 7 points. It's kind of a little lofty, but you can move it right by 5, for example. Mississippi, like all these states, a little bit here and there does add up. And you will see that there, and eventually it will shift that popular vote in that direction. So it's kind of a uniform shift across the board you're going to have to see in a lot of these deep red states. Maybe you see a little bit of a bounce there in Kentucky. The trends continue. Same thing goes for Tennessee, West Virginia, you name it. It all adds up. It really does. So it's possible it happens. It takes a few different factors to really kick in for Donald Trump to win the popular vote, but I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, it's impossible. Like, it will take these trends. It will take that turnout operation, the apparatus the Democrats have used to kind of gain in their vote totals in 2020. And Republicans have talked about utilizing early voting, ballot harvesting. If they actually keep that up and continue, that's something that's very good. And states like Washington that are all mail, you could possibly cut those margins a little bit there. I'm not saying it's going to be by a ridiculous amount, but still, every little bit does tend to add up. And I don't think Oregon's going to flip, but maybe you see a little bounce there. So already you're kind of seeing what happens. It's getting almost to 1% as we fill out the map. Now we'll go to Wisconsin. Yeah, it's another state with a heavy white working class population. If you turn out the base enough in that driftless area, hold the suburbs at a respectable margin where there is a large white working class population, yeah, there's a very good chance that you could end up winning the state, despite Republicans not doing so well in the midterms because they didn't have that X factor on the ballot that has that unique point of strength in those areas. Also, we forgot Illinois. Darren Bailey did very well there, and he was further right than Trump, one could argue, and he only lost by roughly around 12 points. And I'm not saying Trump's going to lose by just 12, let's say 14, or maybe we could even say there would be a little bit of a gain. Let's say he gains with like some Hispanics in the Chicago suburbs a few points and then does really well downstate with turnout. Yeah, maybe he could get that margin down there. Oh, look, it's 0.87%. Or Pennsylvania, for example. Let's move Pennsylvania. Let's say Republicans do pick it off there one more time. Okay, already that adds up. Michigan, you can add a couple points in Michigan. Maybe Republicans do find a way to pull off the state in some miracle yet again. State party's getting competent down in North Carolina. Maybe he could win the state by closer to his 2016 margin there. Okay, now you go to South Carolina. South Carolina, get the turnout up there. Biden's favorability drops all across the board. Okay, well, then that margin gets cut by a ridiculous amount. So we're going to have to continue. We'll go to Missouri again because Missouri's a state that is still a hotbed for a rightward trend in some areas. Okay, let's give them a little boost there. Already 0.33%. Now we could look to states like New Jersey right here. Let's say the state comes back a little bit. Biden's not as popular as he was. Okay, boom, 0.18%. So we're finding the math here slowly. We're finding the math. And let's say a state like South Dakota, maybe that margin gets up there, crosses 30%. Obviously, this does take third parties into account because they could be taking some votes away, mainly from Biden in this case. Okay, move North Dakota, and now that margin continues to decrease. Montana, Republicans are going to be spending a lot of money there because of the Senate race. Move that. I wouldn't say it'd go by 20 points, but maybe it bounces back to the 2016 margin. Already, these things matter. These things add up all across the board. And even like a little bounce in a place like Massachusetts, I'm not saying that it's guaranteed, but yeah, you have a little dead cat bounce here and there, right? Okay. Well, maybe you move it right by 3 points overall. A lot of that's from third parties. Oh, look at that. It's 120,000 votes. That's all we have to find right now on this map in order to get Donald Trump a popular vote victory. And honestly, like a place like Indiana even, because Republicans improved there in the midterms. Let's move Indiana to the right, not by 10 points, but like, let's just say it's a 5-point shift. That's the 2016 margin, a little bit more than that. Boom, there it is. And we didn't go through every state. And yeah, you're probably still going to see states like Colorado move left. I think New Mexico, you could probably move to the right because maybe you do have Hispanic trends continue if Donald Trump is on the ballot. It's not like going to make a big enough dent. I think he probably moves it right by around 3 or 4. But either way, Republicans technically could win the popular vote. It's just a strategy of turning out your voters across the nation, even in these deep blue states, but also just maxing out the rural areas, the exurban areas, and the states you need to win, carry the trends in Ohio and Iowa. And I think that Donald Trump is probably best served in order to do the latter in that if he is to be the nominee. Yeah, it's going to be hard to see somebody like Trump go out there and win Orange County, California, for example, but maybe he does better in LA County because he's seeing better margins as time goes on with Hispanics. I don't know. We'll see when it's all said and done at the end of the day, but either way, it's possible. Not even saying it's guaranteed, but the polls, are they onto something? It's possible that they are. We'll have to get enough state polling as time goes on, as we get closer to the election, before we can really make that determination. But as anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video. Like this video down below, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another video. Follow me on social media. The links are all in the description down below. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Red Eagle, out.